What's going on, guys? Got an awesome video for you today. We're going to compare how much it costs me to apply to medical school to hypothetically how much it would cost me to apply to residency. Let's do it. So here is the topic today. How much does it cost to apply to medical school versus residency? Well, if you have been following my channel from the very beginning, which would be really impressive, but if you have, you know that I actually made a video when I applied to medical school that summed up how much it cost me to apply. I'm going to link that video right above up there, but in case you want a summary, the primary application cost me about $1,300. The secondaries cost me $2,400, and then the interviews cost me quite a lot of money, as well as the second look weekends and whatnot. So the total amount I spent when I applied to medical school was about $7,514. This may have increased now, primarily because of inflation and things like that, but when I applied to medical school, it took me $7,514. With all of that being said, now I'm going to talk about residency. And specifically, I'm going to base it off of a paper that was recently published in JAMA. I'm going to link that paper below as well. Everything I do is based off of science. Y'all know that about me. I don't mess around with bullshit. So this is exactly what we're going to use. We're going to use the objective data. And specifically, we're going to focus on internal medicine. And why do I think internal medicine is a good thing to focus on in terms of residency costs? In general, internal medicine is not as competitive as most of the other specialties, and therefore, just by learning how much you might have to pay for internal medicine can actually help understand the baseline, because more often than not, the competitive specialties have to apply to more programs than you might for internal medicine. So, and specifically this year, we're going to be focusing on the COVID payments, because COVID changed everything. And it may change everything for the future, because I know med schools did interviews virtually, residencies did interviews virtually, and so maybe if we keep interviews virtual, the stuff we learned from this year is going to apply moving forward. So I really want to reflect on what we learned and tell you the implications. So with all that being said, let's now discuss how much it costs. Now, based on this paper, here's what the facts say. In terms of internal medicine, there were about 24,000 applicants this year. And with that, there was a 6% increase from last year. That increase, that 6% increase, was the largest increase that we've seen in recent history. If you actually look at this figure, you can see that we had around 2,400 applicants, and that it increased 6%. Last year, it increased 0.2%, the year before 2%. And so this 6% increase is insane. We don't know if this is partly because of the COVID year, but part of the hypothesis could be that because it was a COVID year, maybe more people were applying, fewer people took a research year. Whatever it may be, there was a large increase in the application. So in general, as I said, this is the largest increase we've seen, and it may suggest that there was a lower barrier to apply, which again, if we assume that going forward, the application cycle remains virtual, will we see this level of increase? We don't know yet, but it will be interesting to make sure we keep this in consideration. Next up, I also want to show you that the average number of programs that we applied to for internal medicine students who are going into internal medicine went up from 57.8 in 2016 to 2021, 71.8 applications. That's a lot of programs. So if you think about med school analogy, it would be like applying to 71 med schools in 2021 as opposed to 57.8 in 2016. The thing about the pricing and the way you can see that is reflected in this graph here. Again, it's taken directly from the paper, and you can see that the number of IM programs that people have been applying to has been increasing steadily, but just in the last year, there was a pretty sharp increase. You can see that just because the slope connecting the two lines became a bit steeper. And again, that could be because of COVID. People knew that maybe they wouldn't have in-person interviews, and they knew that they would have a lot more cash on hand, and therefore they decided to apply to more programs. Again, it's tough to draw conclusions, but point being, people have been applying to way more programs. Next part is what you came to watch this video for, which is, even though people are applying to 71.8 programs, how much money is that? The way you determine pricing for residency is this thing called ERAS, and ERAS has the following algorithm. For the first 10 applications, you pay a joint fee of $99. For 11 to 20, you pay $16 each. From 21 to 30, you pay $20 each, and every application after 31, you pay $28. So in 2020, because they applied to, this should say 2016. In 2016, people would apply to 57.8, so the first 30 applications are going to be given by this price, And then shortly after the first 30, you then have 27 more because it's 57.8. And then you add that, and that gives you a total amount of $1,161. In 2021, if you take an average applicant, the average number of programs was 71.8. That adds up to about $1,500. And it's important to remember this 1,100 is less than 1,500, but they had in-person interviews in 2016. You had to actually fly to places that gave you an interview. You had to fly back. That was all out of pocket. In 2021, that was not the case. And therefore, this 1,500, the reason we may see this increase in number of applications people apply to may have partially been because people knew they wouldn't have to fly. And so the implications of all of this are relatively important because I think for both medical school and residency, even though technically I paid less or may pay less for residency, it's important to remember because it's virtual interviews, I may actually have to apply to fewer places because it's going to be more competitive. Everyone might be applying to more places, and therefore every place will have more individuals. So again, that's kind of what I've mentioned here. Every program will also have a more diverse pool because if more people are applying, there's going to be way more competition, obviously. The other thing is if more people are applying, there's also going to be more time needed for each program to review candidates. All of this to say, I think I will likely spend less on residency application if interviews are virtual. That will also stay true for you. If you're applying to medical school, just remember if interviews are virtual, you may actually be spending less. And because of that, some people may compensate by applying to a few more schools that they may not have originally just because they don't have to pay as much out of pocket for interviews. With all of this being said, there are some thoughts that people may cap, at least for residency, the number of applications that you can apply to because they don't want people applying to like 80 places. But as you see, this is what the data shows us. And so the TLDRs of this is that I may spend around 1,500 potentially if I apply to 70 programs. I don't think I will. But if you applied, the average number of programs, about 1,500 for residency and COVID. And when I applied to medical school, it was about 7,500. And again, I suggest you watch that video if you want more information. So with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, drop a like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching. Peace.